or someone else's higher self, you can use the spiritual we form to do this. It, of course, takes a lot of practice. Some people it comes easier than others. And it's done through an understanding of this symbol or key language, and you develop it through meditation. Meditation is no mystical magic or anything. It's the simple process of just learning to control yourself, control your mind, to control your material self and your spiritual self, and turn one off and on as you like. You see, meditation, what you do is you shut down your material senses over there that are all very active. You shut down your conscious mind, and you get into a state of meditation, which is a balanced state where you, the individual of them, have access to your spiritual self. And then what you do, once you gain knowledge of your spiritual force, you actually get in touch with your spiritual self. That power will develop. You can then ask for and receive the symbols and keys of your own name, of your own self. You can then start looking and finding symbols and learn more symbols so you can access other higher forms of information. Now, aside from some ET on another planet that you may want to talk to, if they're willing to respond, one of the more interesting things to access is something called the Akashic Records. Now, what are the Akashic Records? In metaphysical terms, as they're sometimes called the etheric records or whatever, but here's the general idea. As you are thinking, and as everyone is thinking, thoughts, remember now, are forms of energy. Energy condensed and so forth to higher levels of compactness or condensation, I guess you would say, can be formed into matter. But at any rate, thoughts don't die out. Once you form a thought, it is a very, very small impulse of energy that you have created by virtue of your own brain, and they are stored. Well, where are they stored? Well, your thoughts are stored, in your subconscious. They're also stored also in this Akashic Records. So an Akashic Record is a band of energy around a planet that stores all the thoughts of the people on the planet. There's also a storehouse of knowledge or an Akashic Record around a galaxy, and there's also an Akashic Record for a universe. All these forms of Akashic Records store different types of information. Now, you have access to these Akashic Records all of the time, and you access them through the we form on the spiritual side. The knowledge of the past, though, is protected. You can't just jump into it. It's not like open to everyone. You have to learn how to use the we form and how to make this connection. Psychics tap into the we form quite oftenly by accident and are not even aware of what they're actually doing. For instance, I know there are... if any of you have seen Luis Gasparetto do his spirit paintings, that's what he's doing. He's accessing the Akashic Records. Here's what happens. Let's say you want to get in touch with Da Vinci. Well, Da Vinci, the personality that was Da Vinci, is dead and gone. He is reincarnated now as somebody else, and there's been maybe 1 or 2 lifetimes since then. So Da Vinci himself is gone. Da Vinci is no longer on the other side. He's not in the fine matter world. If he was, he wouldn't respond anyway, because on the fine matter world, he's not Da Vinci. He is a collection of all of his lifetimes at that point. But if we want to access, say, Da Vinci and do something, we can get access to Da Vinci's thoughts in the Akashic Records while he was Da Vinci. And that can be done through the we form. We would have to find out how to access his particular records, because the Akashic Records is made up in levels. There are levels of evolution, and each level of evolution has like a memory level in it, and you need a key to get into that. So you learn through meditation, you send a pulse to certain levels that gets you into it. One interesting thing is you can't get into a level of information in the Akashic Records that's higher than your own evolution. So if we're going to try to get access to Da Vinci's thoughts and feelings that are in the Akashic Records, we couldn't get access to any of those thoughts and feelings at a time when his level of evolution was higher than our own. So if Da Vinci was much higher evolved than us, we wouldn't get very much. We would get something, though. But what happens is when you get in touch with those feelings, let's say we learn the symbols and we find out how to send the pulse, we can actually get in there, and just for those moments while we're in touch and in connection with the Akashic Record, we will think and feel like Da Vinci, and our body can react. It can react in the form of auto-writing. That's how it's commonly done. It cannot react vocally. It's not possible to get into the Akashic records and speak like Da Vinci. You can't channel the Akashic records, in other words. You know, Da Vinci's not going to come into your body, take over your body, and speak. That's not possible. But it is possible for you to access the Akashic record and think and feel like him for a moment, and you could write or draw and do things. Billy demonstrates this by quite easily, very simply, he can get into the Akashic record because he knows most of the keys. He has access to many different forms of information which were taught to him, and he can suddenly think and feel like Enoch or some particular one that he happens to know the key for. So that is a possibility. That's one way you can get in touch with other forms of information through the Akashic records. One other thing I'd like to touch on just a little bit while we're discussing this material and the spiritual self, and by the way, just kind of give you some insight into this. You know, we also have emotions and attitudes and so forth that we build. When we come into the world, the material side is very clean. It's like a clean slate. Our psyche has no feelings and thoughts in it. Our subconscious is like a blank hard drive in a computer. It doesn't have any stored up memories at that point. We're a newborn person in the world, and we just kind of got here, and all we have with us when we come in is that accumulated knowledge from the previous lifetimes. So we're all happy. We're just goo-goo happy to be here, and we smile and we love everything. Don't we wish we could keep that all of our life? But it doesn't stay that way. You know, all of a sudden, all sorts of things are dumped on top of us. And while we're laying in the crib, you know, our senses are starting to work, and we start perceiving knowledge of the outside world. And about the age of 2, we start becoming aware of the outside world. And I think that's why babies cry almost their entire second year. They're probably sad to be here in some areas. You know, they're moving into the material world, and they don't like the way things are going on. It's probably a little uncomfortable for them. But what happens? Our senses start picking up the experiences of life, and we start developing our little attitudes and emotions about how we react to things. Let's say we have an individual who's 30 years old, who's divorced, become an alcoholic, and lost his job. If we have someone like that, what has happened? He's lived through some terrible experiences. He makes associations with his experiences. He develops all of these emotions and attitudes towards certain things. Then every bit of information that comes in, when he perceives something, let's say about his divorce, maybe his wife always wore red shoes, and he sees a woman walking down the street with his eyes, so the eyes pick up the red shoes. What's he going to do right away? He immediately associates that with the bad memory of the recent divorce, doesn't he? So he doesn't actually perceive this person as they really are. He doesn't see them subjectively at all. What he does is, instead, when he sees this person, he just sees red shoes, a trigger goes off inside, and you know, he doesn't react normally towards this individual if he's going to react at all. So we can be greatly controlled by all of our, you know, programming we go through life with. So one of the main functions that we need to do is to learn to meditate, to close down some of our emotions and attitudes, all these knee-jerk responses that we develop and so forth as we go along, so we can control ourselves. So we can learn to reprogram ourselves and see people objectively when they walk down the street. I mean, not subjectively, objectively. When they're walking down the street in red shoes, so we can just say, well, there's a pair of red shoes, and there's a new person that I don't know, and don't make any attachment to all of the difficult feelings and problems that you may have had during a divorce. But we do that. Our material side, as we go on and on in life,